Tonight, a victory for human trafficking victims in West Michigan. A woman sold for sex as a teen on Grand Rapids streets was determined to change the way her life story would end. So she sought justice from the system that once branded her a criminal. Target 8 investigator Susan Samples was in court for an extraordinary moment, one of the first uses of a new state law in Kent County, and a story you'll only see on 8. Susan.
Leon, you might think you have an idea of what human trafficking looks like, how it happens, and where. But victims right here in West Michigan aren't always easy to spot and might even be hiding in plain sight. If you need property records in Kent County, this is the place to go, the Register of Deeds office. For nearly 2 decades, you would have found this woman behind the counter here. For most of that time, Ruth Rondon guarded a secret.
At first, when I first started working, I was so afraid somebody was going to expose my past.
These are your emotions.
But today, she's illuminating the darkest moments of her life so that others might see the light.
You may proceed now.
Your Honor, I've done a lot of inner work trying to heal from everything that I've been through. It takes a long time to recover from 18 years of being trafficked.
Now 63 and retired, Rondon was determined the system that once locked her up would finally set her free by erasing the prostitution convictions that haunted her for decades. A 2015 state law lets victims of human trafficking get certain convictions expunged, wiped clean from their record.
I've been waiting all my life for this. I never thought I would see this day.
Ruth Rondon was the last of 6 born to an alcoholic father and battered mother. Tormented themselves with few resources, both were abusive to their children, who were often left to fend for themselves.
Oh, I had easy prey on my forehead big time.
Rondon thinks she was 9 in this picture. In a year, she would be raped for the first time. A stranger lured her from a shopping mall. She was 10 years old.
When you're, especially at a very young age, when you're sexually abused, you carry a lot of shame. You believe that you are not worth fighting for.
Later, as an adult, when she pieced together her chaotic younger years, she found this record from her stay at a mental hospital after she'd been gang raped at a party. A mental health worker noted she leads a pretty fast life. Smoke, alcohol, sex for a 13-year-old girl. A year later, she met her first trafficker in an ER waiting room. She and a friend noticed 2 men, strangers, giving them the eye.
We were so desperate for attention, and we were very impressed by them. We exchanged numbers that day, and that was my demise because he showered me with gifts, took me shopping.
So eventually, when the man she considered her savior told her he couldn't see her anymore because he'd lost a lot of money gambling.
He said there was a really nice man at the gambling house who wanted to spend a lot of money on me.
Thus began 18 terrifying years on Grand Rapids streets, trafficked by violent pimps, trapped by drug addiction, bought by men you probably wouldn't suspect.
By the time I was 20 years old, I was violated by teachers and counselors, doctors, law enforcement, and clergy. How can you have any hope after that? I was just a child. I was injecting heroin by age 17. My drug use got so bad that jail terms and hospital stays were just routine to me.
This was Ruth Rondon 2 decades ago, speaking at a church about how she escaped drugs with the help of God, a 6-month jail stay,
My last arrest saved my life.
and the kindness of a caring soul.
While in jail, I had developed a relationship with one of the ladies that came to the jail on Sundays to minister to the girls. She picked me up on my out date.
Rondon shared her struggle with drugs, but never that she'd been trafficked for sex. Too much shame. Not anymore.
I believe we're all living in an era that's changing for women. Some of the women that didn't make it, I wish they were here with me to experience it. Your Honor, I'm doing what I can to make up for all those lost years, and I'm doing what I can to give back. Back then, I was a victim. Today, I'm a victor.
Ma'am, you are an inspiration, frankly. It is, for me, it has been inspiring to read your motion and the supporting material.
To qualify for a record expungement, victims have to show traffickers forced them into prostitution through violence, coercion, or fraud, and the prosecutor can object. Not here.
Your Honor, we have absolutely no objection to granting the motion.
In the audience for support, Rondon's sisters.
I'm so happy for her today. Going through this with her in the family has, for years, torn us apart. And she has been through so much.
This isn't a legal term, but it's really cool the way the family works here. It's the way family is supposed to work. And the entire story is quite inspiring. It is with great pleasure, and we don't have all that many circumstances where we have great pleasure in what we do here, but it is with great pleasure that I grant your motions and I'll sign the orders.
To me, it means my life has come full circle.
What would you say to that young lady?
It's possible to reach the other side.
Tomorrow, we take the story a step further, starting on 24-hour News 8 at 5. We're going to look at what else Ruth Rondon is doing to get the word out and to dispel myths about how trafficking usually happens. In her retirement, she is just getting started.
Right. People often ask us, how do you come up with these stories? And a lot of times this answer is we get a tip or something, but there's an interesting story behind this one.
That's right. I actually met her 3 years ago at the district court window in downtown Grand Rapids. I happened to overhear her. She was asking the clerk about this new law. And she said, I need to know about this new law where you can expunge your record, and I want to change the way my story ends. And I said, hello? I said, excuse me, what is that story? She wasn't ready 3 years ago. I checked in with her recently. She was ready, and she said, oh, by the way, that expungement hearing thing, that's coming up in a week or so.
All right. Your reporter,
supposed to happen.
Yes.
Supposed to happen.
There you go.
So good for her.
Great story. Susan,
Thanks.
Thank you.